She leaves out the fact that also that Israel and the SLA, the Southern Lebanon Army, also had its hand in doing wrong and evil deeds to Muslims. For example, Israel and the SLA together did torture in what is the Shaim prisons and things like that. She doesn't tell you about that. Also, these Lebanese Christians that she's a part of also participated in the Sabra and Shatila massacres, which massacred many Muslims, male, female, and children. Okay, it was considered a war crime. Even Ariel Sharon, who was in charge of this, was charged with being a war criminal in his participation and orchestration of this massacre. So she's not being honest. She's not telling you the truth. The Muslims did not start it. It wasn't a 911. It was a resistance to what they were doing to the Muslims. Okay, that's what she's leaving out.
Why did they do this to us? And my father would tell me, because we are infidels, because we are Christians, the Muslims consider us infidels, and they want to kill us. So I knew ever since I was 10 years old that I'm wanted dead simply because I was born into the Christian faith.
Okay, here we see that she says that she had been injured, taken to the hospital, and she asks her father, why do they hate her? And supposedly her father tells us that the reason is because they're Christians and they're considered infidels. As I already showed you, this is false. Either her father lied to her, or her father was ignorant of the atrocities that have been committed, that were being committed by the Phalanx, the SLA, and other Maronite Christians in Lebanon. That was the reason why the Muslims were angry with these people, because they were working with Israel, because they were committing atrocities against Muslims, because they were oppressing the Muslims, because they were being unfair and holding power and rejecting the democratic processes and institutions in Lebanon. That's why the Muslims had a problem, not just because they were infidels, okay? And this infidel stuff is a bunch of nonsense. They keep throwing this infidel word around. The word infidel comes from your Bible, Christians. Stop throwing it around like it's our word. You were the ones who were calling people infidels before anybody. In your Bible, it clearly says, it talks about infidels. Okay? So for her to throw this out, oh, they were considered infidels, stop playing games, Brigitte. You know that you, Christians, you considered the Muslims infidel before anything first is right in your Bible. Okay? So please.
Able to create the wealth we created, the good life we created, the good education we created. But we didn't realize that you can offer somebody everything you have, but you can never bring somebody who is lower than you up. The forces of the universe will always have the lower bring the higher person down. Able to create the wealth we created, the good life we created, the good education we created. But we didn't realize that you can offer somebody everything you have, but you can never bring somebody who is lower than you up. The forces of the universe will always have the lower bring the higher person down.
Himself having 27, which is 80 children between he and his father. If his other brothers and sisters were that prolific, they could have produced over 1,400 children in that one family in a matter of this population explosion potential, as you talk about Osama bin Laden being one of 53 children, and he himself having 27, which is 80 children between he and his father. If his other brothers and sisters were that prolific, they could have produced over 1,400 children in that one family in a matter of 30 years. That's how the Muslims, with their multiple marriages, and it's important to understand that all a Muslim man has to do to divorce his wife is just say 3 times, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, and she's out the door.
Exactly.
And he can marry a 5th wife. He still has 4. He may have 1 running the streets or 5 running the streets, but he only has 4 under his roof.
That's right.
And they...
Okay, next, as they all like to do, instead of acknowledging the true fact that Islam is actually growing because people are coming to Islam. People are converting or reverting to Islam. Instead of acknowledging that point, they like to come up with this bogus claim that it is the birth rate of the Muslims and this is why the Muslims are growing. A bunch of nonsense. She goes into, and because the Muslims have 4 wives, they're allowed to marry 4. Look, people, most Muslims don't have 4 wives. Most Muslims around the world do not have 4 wives. Okay? So all this nonsense that is because of the birth rate and because they have 4 wives, this is a bunch of nonsense. Okay?
But that's how that they can move into a state or to a nation and in a very short period of time in a democracy outvote you.
Exactly.
They can change the laws to be in their favor. And that's why we have in this country right now an immigration problem that can become a very real problem because the American birth rate, because of abortion, is almost level.
A major problem with our immigration system, with our border control. Not only we are inviting our enemy in, but this enemy is coming into the United States, marrying American citizens who are Muslims, who are already here, who are sympathizers with Hezbollah.
Okay, now here we see that she talks about immigration. Don't you love it, everybody, when foreigners who are immigrants themselves come to the West, attempt to kiss the behind of the white power structure, and start talking about our immigration policies, our this, our that? Why? Isn't that amazing? Brigitte, hello, you are an immigrant. Okay? So if America had strict immigration policies, you might not be here because you are an immigrant. But then again, everybody, that's how these people do. That's how the Uncle Toms, no matter where they come from, this is how they do. They come from some other country. They want to garner favor with those in power, which in this case will be the white power structure. And then they kiss the behind and start talking about our country and our immigration policies and our this, and we got to do something about immigrants. You're an immigrant, you hypocrite. And this is how they garner favor with the power structure, by using the rhetoric of those in power and identifying with those in power to garner a favor, to appease them, to pander to them. They say our immigration policies, we got to stop the immigrants from coming in. The immigrants are a problem, and they don't even realize the fact that they themselves are immigrants. Okay, so everybody be clear on that this is nothing more than an Uncle Tom move. This is nothing more than a pandering and an appeasing to the power structure. Okay, be clear about that.